Podcast City Network.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome to the home of your six-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Today is August 16th, 2021, and this is episode 158 of the Nest Podcast. I'm your boy, Brandon Brewer. The Zach Bill is joining me. Zach, what is up, my man? How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. The weather here is nice. It broke like 82 today for a high. I couldn't ask for anything more in August. I don't think it'll stick around, but we're doing pretty great so far.
Outstanding. Yeah, we've been on the fringe of tropical storm. I believe it was Fred that made landfall in the Florida Panhandle earlier today. So we've been getting some rain bands blowing through all afternoon, but that's about it for us here in Jacksonville, Florida. Might have put a damper on the Jacksonville Jags practice, but no more than their performance did this past weekend. But we'll get into that a little bit. Thursday night, we had quite the pickle on our hands, pun intended, because this is a baseball conversation that we're about to get into. And that is that we had the most watched game in MLB history. Well, excuse me, the most watched game for the past 16 years in Major League Baseball, the Field of Dreams games. And then we also had one of the most anticipated preseason debuts of all time. And that, of course, is Mac Jones and the New England Patriots. So I know I was flipping back and forth. You were keeping tabs on both games as well, but you were focused a little bit more on the Field of Dreams game. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you thought of that experience?
It was definitely enjoyable. I think one thing that would have made it more enjoyable for me personally was to watch any other team but the Yankees. But I get it. I mean, that's a huge market, you know, that you're going to appeal to those fans, and they probably have a lot of fans around. But I think the atmosphere was awesome. It was like small town, you know, down home baseball. It wasn't the big bright lights. It was really cool to see the field in literally the middle of a cornfield. That was pretty neat. They did a really good job of it. And, you know, surprisingly, Joe Buck wasn't as annoying as he typically is.
Yeah, that's always a plus whenever you can walk away and Joe Buck wasn't the reason that you had to watch your game on mute the entire time. I thought it was really neat to see the players walk out of the cornfield, much like what happened in the movie whenever the legends would walk out of the field. That had to be a cool experience for the players, and that had to be really cool for the fans there in attendance to see, because I know it was cool on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not get to finish the end of that. We went to bed because of work and adulthood, but the ending of that game was, I mean, they couldn't have planned that any better. It was absolutely perfect for them. I hope a lot of people did get to watch that too, because obviously that's what's most exciting in baseball is a close game and people are scoring, hitting home runs, and there was plenty of that on both sides.
Right. Just to set the picture, the White Sox were up late in the game, and then the Yankees rallied back to take the lead in the ninth inning, and then the White Sox stormed back in the bottom half of the ninth inning to walk it off with a home run into the corn, and fireworks were shot off into the sky. And like you said, MLB really couldn't have scripted it any better if they had tried.
Yeah, 100%. I think they love this. You're going to see several more of these games. It's probably going to be like a once a year thing, kind of like how they're traveling to London. I could see them definitely doing that. The NHL has their stadium series where they go to football stadiums. They famously played at Soldier Field. So I think if MLB can do things that are a little bit more exciting like this and gain people's attention, it'll be perfect for the sport, because this long season, I think, kind of wears on people. And for a lot of people that aren't really into it, watching the same thing over and over is kind of redundant. And then obviously in October, it gets really exciting because people are playing for a championship. So
Absolutely.
if they can kind of bring these other kind of games in, and this is a super unique location, so I think that'll be really good for it. And hopefully they'll keep putting up the the contenders of MLB, maybe the Dodgers next year and somebody else, because that's really what's going to bring people into becoming fans of the sport, is to be able to see something other than your average just ball game on a Saturday or whatever.
Yeah, I agree, and it's good that you already answered that, because I was going to ask you if you thought that it would come back around again next year,
Yeah.
or in years later. So you did answer that. I think, and hear me out, I think that would be an awesome place for an all-star game.
Oh, 100%.
Imagine the home run derby hitting bombs into the cornfield all night.
Yeah.
And then, you have the nostalgia of the Field of Dreams movie and all that stuff. Have the all-stars coming out of the corn and all that. That would be pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. I kind of wish that they would have made it a little bit bigger. Like, I get what they were doing, make it small, make it more, make it seem like it's in the movie a little bit more than it's just another ballpark. But like, it's what, like 6,700 seats or something? It's really low.
It's small, yeah.
An MLB game.
It would almost take some more renovations and stuff like that for them to want to bring bigger events there, like an all-star game. But I think just being an intimate setting is pretty awesome. And it has already been confirmed that they are bringing it back next year. And the Cubs have already been basically confirmed as being that team. Matthew Bain tweeted out that soon after the Cubs manager David Ross hinted that Chicago would play in a future Field of Dreams game, that basically was the slip up. He hinted that it was going to be them, but then it was confirmed later on that the Chicago Cubs would be, and it's very likely that their opponent could be the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, I could see them doing that. Obviously,
so
go ahead.
That's two more big name teams with good viewership. They're also geographically a lot closer to Iowa than the New York Yankees.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd 100% see a lot of Cardinals fans make that trip. And I think Chicago's not much farther either. The only thing that worries me about that is the Cubs don't really have a great team. I mean, we don't know what moves they're going to be made, but you would assume this is going to be the start of a rebuild. You're going to see their prospects get called up. So, I mean, if they aren't great, I don't know if that's necessarily a game that would want to appeal to a whole bunch of people. I don't know if a lot of people are going to tune in to watch a mediocre team. And let's face it, the Cardinals aren't necessarily lighting the world on fire either. But I mean, obviously, I'd be here for it. I'd watch that at any point.
Well, in case you didn't hear me, Zach, the Field of Dreams game had the highest regular season ratings that MLB has seen in 16 years, and they featured a mediocre team this year in the New York Yankees.
Oh, nice one. I like that.
So, I mean, by that logic, the Cubs are a shoo-in for the next team up. Anyway, we also had the kickoff, if you will, of preseason NFL. That's very same night. And for me, I was beyond excited because the New England Patriots were on my TV screen for the first time in about 7 months. I was stoked. I got to see the Patriots out there in their color rush blues, and it was nice. They were playing there at home in Foxborough. There were fans in the stands. The fans were loud. They were rowdy. It was football, and I was excited about it. I know you were flipping back and forth trying to keep up on all the action that was going on your TV screen, but our New England Patriots defeated the Washington football team by a score of 22-13. This is the same Washington football team, mind you, that scored 23 points on the Bucs defense that shut down the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. This is also the same Washington football team that gave Tom Brady a run for his money. The Cam Newton, Mac Jones led New England Patriots scored on multiple offensive drives. Are we back?
I think so.
Are we back? Is this Pat's team for real? They are playing against the Washington football team, who they were a playoff team last year, and they were able to come out there and beat them in the very first time that this team has gotten together on a field and gelled. Are we back?
I think so, man. I think this was a huge testament to what Bill Belichick can do. Like you said, this is damn near a new team. I mean, you've got 3 new tight ends. You've got a brand new quarterback. And I mean, all the other pieces that they picked up that I have no idea who they are, because that's what Bill Belichick loves to do. This is huge, because basically all they've had is their mini camp and training camps to kind of gel, like you were saying, and get the feel of it. And it was a great performance against a solid defense. I mean, in the past, the football team has been a terrible team, but they're formidable at this moment.
They were able to shut down Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Pats were on defense. They were able to move the ball. They kindly didn't score a bunch of touchdowns, and they let rookie kicker Quinn Nordine test out his leg several times over the course of the game. And
he's
of course,
your new favorite player.
He was perfect with field goals, going 3 for 3 on the night. Dude is electric. I love this guy. I saw him in the offseason kicking bombs with his kicking coach, and I was like, yep, that's my guy. He signed as an undrafted free agent. He's coming to the Pats. Nick Folk, the incumbent field goal kicker for the Pats, has been injured. So Quinn Nordine stepped up. He said, hey, I'm Dr. Quinn kicker man, and I'm going to do the damn thing. And he did.
Love to see that. You love to see that. The one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up about this first preseason game, are you a little worried about Cam now that he did it fine, but Mac Jones really stepped up? And I don't think they're going to give him the reins right off the bat, but I'm getting kind of worried about Cam, because the pressure is going to be on him. He knows there's a bright young kid that they're really excited about right behind him. He didn't do great last year. He knows he basically has to run and gun. He's getting older. I mean, I don't know. I have some questions about him.
Yeah, and I think your questions are warranted. Cam has not looked good in a couple of years. I was definitely giving him the pass last season with the, oh, well, he joined the team in July. They didn't have a regular preseason. In fact, they didn't have any preseason last year. He was just kind of thrown into the mix. The first time that he ever really played with his offense against an opposing defense was week 1 of the 2020 season. And for what it's worth, he actually looked good. And then COVID hit and he was sick. He had to miss a few games because of that. And he never looked right after that. So I was ready to give him the pass on the 2020 season. But now coming into 2021, he's had a full camp. He's had a full preseason. And if he's still not able to really gel and not really understand the offense and not really understand the flow of things, it is going to be very, very hard for Bill Belichick to continue to put him out there as the starter. When Mac Jones made his preseason debut, he received a several minute long standing ovation from the fans in Gillette Stadium. They were ready for him to take the reins of that team. All it's going to take for Cam Newton to lose that job is to screw up a couple weeks, maybe a couple weeks in a row, and the team lose a couple games, and they're going to really get loud calling for Mac Jones. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I'm not sure. Whether that's what Bill Belichick will do or not, I'm not sure, because we know he doesn't care what the fans are saying. He's the coach. He's not going to let the fans dictate that. But I do think that if Cam's out there and he's struggling, that's going to make a lot more sense for Bill Belichick to go ahead and pull the trigger on the young stud.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. This is Cam's job to lose.
Yep.
I think that they want to save Mac Jones for as long as possible, try to get him to learn as much as possible, because that's usually what works for these quarterbacks. You just take Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, for example. They both sat behind a very good quarterback for a whole year and learned before they really ever stepped foot on a regular season football game. And these days, for whatever reason, that is not the case. A lot of these guys like Tua, and there's a whole bunch else, they get trotted out week 4, week 5 if their team is not winning. And like you said, I don't know if Bill Belichick's going to do that. He's not one to really be swayed one way or the other by the fan base or by anything else. So we'll have to see. But I do know that they want to win, and they don't need another season like last season. It's time to get back on that winning mindset, that winning train. And if Cam isn't the answer, they might at least just try to see what Mac Jones can do.
Yeah, you mentioned last year and how they don't want another last year. Last year's season is what led to them being able to get Mac Jones. And people forget they were 7-9 last year with a team that basically had nobody.
Yeah.
They had more opt-outs than any other team in the NFL. They had a quarterback that struggled, and then they also had like the issues with the COVID where they started Brian Hoyer against the Chiefs on literally like days notice.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of issues, injuries. James White's parents died in the middle of the season and he had to take time off. They had a lot of issues and they still were almost a 500 team. This team is back. They've got a lot of returning stars on the defensive side of the ball. They've got guys that are more competent on offense. Nelson Aguilar, whenever he's in there, it completely changes the dynamic of the team. He's practicing with them in joint practices this week against the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's been lighting up Twitter. Nelson Aguilar was trending on Twitter earlier today for his performance at practice against the Eagles. Mac Jones apparently was lighting it up again today at practice. Cam did fairly well. The only 2 incompletes that he had were batted balls. So guys at the line of scrimmage jumping up and knocking his ball back in his face.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that all day from Cam. I feel more confident in Mac Jones's big arm ability to throw downfield, but I also understand that Cam's upside is his running ability. So if we're going to platoon a quarterback, I mean, I'm for that as well.
Yeah.
Let's just get some dubs. Let's make sure that we can make a run at the playoffs, because the playoffs without the Patriots, that's just not the playoffs for me.
Yeah. It's very strange. I mean, we've seen Patriots in the playoffs, I mean, for decades now. And one thing that I wanted to also mention too was, especially for Pats fans
like us,
a lot of people are probably going to call for Mac Jones to be the quarterback in week 2, week 3, the first time Cam throws an interception. I mean, people just jump off.
That's going to happen.
Yeah, immediately. And to those people, I would say, I get it. He's not performing, but you've got to let time do its thing. We've said it before on this show. I mean, the worst thing you can do is to throw a young quarterback out there. The jump from college to NFL is bar none, in my opinion. So, I mean, I get it. Who would want to start the season 0-4, 0-5? But I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case, because like you said, that team had holes all over it from guys that opted out and from COVID and everything. So maybe if last year was a regular year and not that weird season, maybe Cam would have done better.
Yeah, I think maybe he would have. I think the tables would have definitely been turned a little bit. And I mentioned James White earlier. I think he's poised to have a good bounce back season. But the real star of the show, I think, for the backfield of the New England Patriots will be Damien Harris. I think this is a dude that's going to really steal the show, and this is a guy that's going to have huge upside for fantasy owners out there. So if you're listening, Damien Harris might be a guy to scoop up late in drafts. Let's not just dwell too much on the Patriots and their performance against the Washington football team. Again, that's the same Washington football team that gave the champion Tampa Bay Bucks a run for their money. And speaking of those Bucks, they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Bad luck. I don't know a whole lot about that game. I obviously would assume that their second string guys and their practice squad guys were playing the majority of that game. And that just goes to show you this is a, win now team. The Buccaneers are not obviously built for the future unless they just start tanking and getting number one picks. But this is a Tom Brady team. And if his starters aren't there, this team isn't doing what they've been doing. So I think that just kind of proves that, like, this is the Tom Brady show. It's not like the Buccaneers are suddenly a good team all around.
Yeah, Tom Brady went 1 for 2 for 9 yards in the game. So he did not get a lot of playtime, but he didn't just sit altogether, which is something that I thought was kind of strange. You've got Tom Brady, like, what does he really need to do in preseason? But
yeah. I mean, just warm his old bones up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, they weren't able to really move the ball even when Tom was in there. Like I said, he only went 1 for 2 for 9 yards, didn't even get a first down while Tom Brady was in the game. And that would be playing against the Bengals ones. Whereas on the other side, Joe Burrow didn't even play. Their star quarterback didn't even play. So
very interesting. I'm surprised he didn't play at all. I mean,
I think they're still trying to ease him in with his recovery from his ACL tear. They're trying to ease him into the I guess, football speed, and they didn't want to go out there and risk him getting hit or something crazy in the first preseason game.
Right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I would think at least maybe in the fourth quarter against the lowest guys on the totem pole, maybe at least just toss him out there to get a feel for it, because I'm sure that's going to be in the back of his head, especially for a younger guy who lit the world on fire there for a while last year and then obviously had a really bad injury. I would want to try to see what he can do out there and just kind of get him used to it as quickly as possible.
And that's an interesting idea. Normally you think of like the QB1 is going to be facing the first string defense with the first string offense on their side, but that's not a bad idea. Maybe have them go out there against the fourth stringers on defense. The only issue is that that I see is, are you also going to have fourth string offense out on the team with the first string quarterback? That would definitely increase the chance of him getting hurt, because those are guys that aren't as good at blocking and aren't as good at performing at that NFL level. Maybe one of those defenders is going to get through unblocked and then have a clear shot at your QB1.
It's a very good point. And another thing to consider is one of those no-name guys on the fourth string or whatever,
trying to make the name for themselves, trying to make the team. Yeah,
100%. Maybe if they can crack Joe Burrow, then they'll be noticed, and people will talk about it or whatever. I don't know. There's definitely different ways you can go about it, and it might be something that I can't even comprehend because it's not my job, obviously. But if it were me, I would want this guy to get used to being under pressure and taking hits, because he's gonna get hit. I mean, it's just part of it. I hope this doesn't put a dent in his success, because he was doing great. Yeah. So that would suck to see him kind of regress.
And I think he'll bounce back. I think he'll be fine. And I think it's just like a similar situation with Saquon Barkley with the Giants. He didn't play in their first preseason game. They're trying to ease him into it, trying not to re-aggravate anything. But speaking of the Giants, the NFC East as a whole has picked up exactly where they left off last season, and that's winless. Every single team from the NFC East has lost their first preseason game. Not looking good if you are a fan of the Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, or football team.
Christ. Oh, man. That just is par for the course right there. I'm surprised one of them didn't tie or something, because there's always a tie in the NFC.
That's true. Yeah, wait till the regular season for them to break out their ties. And of course, all the drama, and we've talked about it and speculated about it for weeks on our show, that has been surrounding some of these other teams, most notably the Green Bay Packers with the Aaron Rodgers drama. Maybe that distraction got to them a bit because they got rocked by the Texans, who also have had their fair share of drama that we've discussed mightily on our show. But the Packers, with all the talent that they have and with all the weapons that they really do have, your Adams, your Jones, your Rodgers, who I don't think played, but Jordan Love, who's supposed to be their next guy up and stuff like that, they got smoke checked by a team that most people are saying could be the first 0-17 team.
Not good, not great.
Not a good look.
And I think if you're right about Aaron Rodgers not playing, then that's probably the key there. If you remember from last year, he was basically their flagship player. Obviously, Aaron Jones had a good season, but he is 100% the reason that they have as much success as they do. And you might be saying that Jordan Love is the future, but I don't know. I mean, we've talked about it before. If they're not so high on Jordan Love, then maybe that's why they're willing to keep Aaron for another year. I don't know. It's hard to say. Obviously, the guy hasn't played in a regular season yet, but something kind of tells me he might not be all that great or just not a fit for their system or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Okay. So Aaron Rodgers did not play. Jordan Love played the bulk of the game. He did. He went 12 for 17 for 122 yards and a touchdown. It's not bad for preseason stats. Mind you, he didn't play the entire game. They also put in their third string backup for a little bit. But he also played without Aaron Jones. He played without Adams.
Right.
So he didn't have a lot of his primary weapons either. Also on the Texans side, Deshaun Watson did not play. Tyrod Taylor went 4 for 4 for 40 yards when he was in there.
My man.
Davis Mills seemed to be in there the longest. He went 11 for 22 for 112 yards and threw a pick.
Interesting.
All of their touchdowns came on the ground.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So rushing touchdowns for the Texans. So it is what it is, but they smoke checked them. The final score in that one was 26-7. The Packers just didn't look like they even wanted to play. And another team that's gotten really familiar this offseason with drama has been the New Orleans Saints, and they lost by a field goal. And wouldn't you know, their field goal kicker, Will Lutz, apparently has had a similar issue as the star Michael Thomas has had, in that he was injured. The team put off him having surgery. Then he had to have surgery in the offseason, and now he's missed time, and the team is already losing by field goals.
Wow. I think I think you were right whenever you said that, they trotted everybody out in the farewell to Drew Brees tour that was last year to try to make his last
run
season. Yeah, to try to make his last season notable. And I think they're going to reap the repercussions of that, and it's going to suck. I think that team is potentially going to have not so great of a few seasons here, especially because there's a huge question mark at the quarterback position. Alvin Kamara is going to have a tremendous workload, and can he sustain all of that, because he's going to be target number one for all the defenses. Very interesting stuff. Not great decisions by the management there, because they knew their time with Drew Brees was basically over. Why risk the future for the present, especially when, let's face it, they weren't going to go off on some kind of tear and win another Super Bowl. That just wasn't in the cards.
No, it wasn't. And it's a shame that they've sacrificed so much future. They've sacrificed so much of their future with Mike Thomas. They've sacrificed future with apparently their kicker, Will Lutz. They've strung along Taysom Hill for so long. Now they've got Jameis Winston, and they're kind of doing the same with him, stringing him along, because Taysom Hill was the quarterback that started the game. Granted, it was just the preseason game, and he's kind of a Swiss Army knife type player. Our boy Harvey wants Jameis Winston to be the starter of that squad. He actually watches these games a lot closer than I do, so he may see something that I might not, but I take his word for it. And Harvey was a guy that was very high on Taysom Hill. 2 years ago was talking about Taysom Hill was the future of the New Orleans Saints, and that was their guy going forward. Now it seems like he's finally changed his tune a little bit to realize maybe he's not all that he was cracked up to be.
Yeah, I don't think that experiment is going to work out. He's like a college wildcat option type offensive quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doesn't really translate in the NFL, especially with the Saints. I mean, you're talking about one of the best passers to probably ever do it in Drew Brees. That's not what that team is designed to do, is to have a quarterback like that that's basically another position throwing the football. So I don't think he's the answer. And I agree with Harvey. I think you want Winston in there. Week 1, game 1, he should be your QB1. You should see what he can do. Try to see if this team is built for him. See if he can actually be successful. And then you know what you've got. And if it doesn't work out and if he seems to be the root cause, then maybe you throw Taysom Hill back in there. But again, I don't think he's going to be the answer either. But at least at that point, you know what you've got. And then you need to eventually look into the future and see what you can pick up for draft picks and stuff like that if those two guys don't work out, which, I mean, maybe they will, but I'm not super hopeful for that.
The crazy thing to me about the Jameis Winston scenario, or not Jameis Winston scenario, but the Taysom Hill scenario, is that he signed a contract. Granted, it's entirely voidable, but 4 years, $160 million. So this is a dude that could potentially be making $40 million a year to be a gadget quarterback.
Yeah.
Wild to me. And now, because of the voidable contract and all that stuff, it's very possible that, you know, he could get paid a lot less than that. And he signed this knowing that, hey, they can pretty much negotiate down, but they can't negotiate up. So he set his ceiling essentially for pay. But I don't think that he's going to be the man going forward. And I think that voidable contract is going to get voided out entirely. And he's going to end up not on the team within the next 2 years.
Yeah, they would have been a lot better off to put him as maybe a slot receiver or a tight end or something like that, or even maybe a backup running back. Obviously, you've got Kamara, who's great, but Taysom Hill has some talent. I mean, we've seen it. He can do some things on the field, but he's just not as refined of a quarterback as you need on an NFL team. This is a strange move by the Saints, and like you said, that weird contract where he could be paid a buttload of money is strange, but they took that risk. It's relatively low risk because, like you said, it's all avoidable. They took the risk in having a guy who could potentially do all kinds of crazy things, and if it doesn't work out, then they just don't have to pay him that much money.
Yeah, I really feel like they were trying to do something innovative, but it just doesn't really pan out the way that they wanted it to. They should have made Taysom Hill into a Julian Edelman type slot receiver. Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about these rookies because, you know, it's very rare that a draft class has 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and then for all 5 of those quarterbacks to make their preseason debut days apart. And for the most part, they were all pretty good. So this segment I want to call Rookie Quarterback Revelation, because they were revealed to be as advertised. And that's great for the future of the sport. That's great for football going forward. And it's great for our New England Patriots, because Justin Powell of the NFL Draft Bible said, Thursday was opening day with Mac Jones looking like a young Tom Brady. Again, that's his words, not mine. But man, did Mac look pretty good in that preseason. Yeah. I was stoked about it. I know I was blowing you up like, Mac is officially in the game. Yeah. Alert, Mac is officially in the game.
Yeah.
According to Pro Football Focus, Mac's passing grade was 82, and it was the top of the class. So anytime that you're the last one taken and the best of everyone, that bodes well for you. And, you know, you can look at other analytics and Mac falls off in some categories, but in other categories, he's up near the top. In this particular one for passing grade, he got an 82. That factors in accuracy. It factors in pocket presence, and it factors in release. The time that he took from the ball snapped from the center to the time that it's out of his hand going to its target. He was at a remarkable 2.53 seconds from the time that it was snapped to him to the time that he was making that decision, reading the defense, and throwing the ball downfield. Think of everything that can happen in 2.5 seconds. Boom. That was it right there.
Yeah.
Like, in the world of football, that could be the difference between getting strip sacked and throwing a touchdown pass. Not much time, but he's able to read the entire defense, figure out where the open guy is in a split 2 seconds. And that's why he's getting Tom Brady type comparisons, because that's what Tom Brady made a career doing.
Yeah, 100%. Tom was never the guy who was fast or who was the hardest thrower or who was the best athlete. He was smart enough to dissect defenses quickly and get the ball to the guy that needed it. And you can see him do that to this day. I mean, he's probably one of the best at it, of taking in what's in front of him and making it all work. And if you're comparing Mac Jones to that's a very good thing. And the sky's the limit for this kid. Did you want to talk about Justin Fields tonight too? Because he was basically the next quarterback to make some big noise.
Yeah, of course, Justin Fields was taken just ahead of our boy Mac Jones in the draft. The Bears moved up to get him. He actually came in third in the same parameters of passing grade from Pro Football Focus with a 64.2. So he did all right for himself. He went 14 for 20 with 142 yards and a touchdown. Of course, the bulk of that was on one play. But yeah, he looked pretty good, and he is going to be dynamic in that Bears offense because he can use his legs. And Matt Hagee is definitely going to take advantage of that. But they're kind of in a similar situation with Dalton there. Or is it Dalton?
Andy Dalton? Yes.
Yeah, that's their quarterback. He's the starter that might not be the starter.
Yeah,
kind of the same way that Cam Newton is the veteran quarterback that's the de facto starter, that a lot of people are saying he might not be the starter come week 1.
Right.
But it's kind of the same deal there in Chicago, because he's a veteran that's kind of taking the young guy under his wing. He's teaching him the ropes, teaching him how to be a professional. And you know what? I think Justin Fields will do just fine in this league.
I do too. And I think he's probably expected to be the starter by week 2 or 3. I mean, maybe they're going to give Dalton a chance there, but I think you're 100% right. Dalton's the veteran that's supposed to be teaching the young kid. And he looks to be solid. I mean, he made some good decisions. Like you said, he can run and make things happen and make plays last a little bit longer because of his legs. But he's playing on a not so great team. And I think that might be where he struggles to make things happen. You know, we've seen that a lot with young quarterbacks. You're not picked at the front of the draft order by good teams typically. And that's kind of what you saw here. This guy can probably do a lot, but it's going to be tough for him to actually compete with a less than awesome offense.
Yeah, but you know what? He's a little bit better off than the guy who actually finished second on Pro Football Focus's list of passing ranks, and that's Zach Wilson for the New York Jets. This is a guy that has struggled pretty heavily all camp, but he had a decent performance in his preseason debut. So when the lights came on, he actually performed. He scored a 78.8. Of course, all eyes were on Jacksonville in primetime when Trevor Lawrence went out there and battled against the Cleveland Browns. He fell to 4th in this ranking with a passing grade of 58.5. And bringing up the rear was a guy that was taken third overall, Trey Lance, with a 49.9. And, you know, all these guys, they did okay. Trey Lance threw a big touchdown pass, but he just wasn't very accurate. He seemed to get flushed out of the pocket, got a little bit lost at times. So that looks like a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starter going forward. He's going to be the mentor probably for the entire season. I don't see Trey Lance getting in there unless something serious happens with Garoppolo.
Trey Lance is the guy who everyone was shocked that was picked so early as he was, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he was taken third overall, but people had him way down the list. But apparently the the 49ers, they see something in him. They see the future in him, and he's kind of like a Kyler Murray type quarterback that he can be elusive. He can escape whenever he has pressure, but he can also throw the football a mile.
Gotcha.
So he's that kind of caliber guy, and he will be good. He just needs some more time to mature.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough on that team too. I mean, they have some pieces for sure, but it's always them versus the Seahawks, and it's basically whoever can beat the other one. And I don't know. I think you're right, though. Go ahead. Sorry.
That NFC West, it's tough. You mentioned the Seahawks, but you also have the Rams, who were the representative in the Super Bowl a couple years back, and the Arizona Cardinals. They're not anything to scoff at either. I mentioned Kyler Murray. You've got to face him twice a year. Plus, they've got D-Hop. Plus, Larry Fitz is back. Plus, they've got Chase Edmonds down there at running back and James Conner to be a bruiser back. They have a squad in Arizona, so don't sleep on them either.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do kind of forget about Arizona. I've never thought highly of Kyler Murray, but they're making a team out there for sure. So it's weird because I guess that's just because that's what it was in recent history, but I've always thought of that division as the Seahawks versus the 49ers, but they might be getting dethroned by these other teams now.
Yeah, it's probably the toughest division in football, in my opinion, that or the AFC West, because just so much talent all around.
Sure.
We started the show talking a little bit about the Field of Dreams game and baseball, but we're getting close to the postseason, man. We're in the middle of August. September baseball is when things really start to heat up. So we're just a few weeks away from that. And we've got some matchups right now that are getting pretty hot in the standings. And we've been talking about them all year, how they have been underperforming and how they were the team that we all picked preseason to win the National League East. But the Atlanta Braves have finally taken over the first place spot. It took them surging. It took the Mets falling off the face of the planet and the Phillies deciding to just be mediocre over the past week. But the Atlanta Braves are now officially in first place, and they are up by 2 games already.
Wow. It took forever for the Mets to screw that up, but they finally did. And I think that's what's happening here. The Braves haven't been great all year.
No.
So this is kind of lucky for them. And I guess we'll see what happens, but that's a very strange division just because everyone's kind of so mediocre.
Yeah, I read that wrong. They're up 2 games on the Mets. It's only a single game over the Phillies, just to correct that.
Okay.
But so it's still a race there, 3-team race there in the NL East. And it's going to come down to the wire, I think, because it'll just really matter at who gets hot now.
Right.
And can make that push. So if you're a fan of baseball, the NL East is going to be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. They're probably one of the tightest divisions out there, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely is. We were talking about tough divisions in football. This is a tough division in baseball because you have to win this division if you have any hopes of making it to the playoffs, because a wild card isn't going to come from your division. That the wild cards in the NL are pretty much locked up in the NL West, where surprisingly the Giants are still leading by 4 games over the Dodgers and 10 games over the Padres. But the Dodgers and Padres, respectively, are leading the wild card. They're 2.5 games up over the Reds for that second wild card spot. So they've definitely got the iron. The Dodgers at least have the iron grip over that first wild card spot, and the Padres are holding on pretty well as well. And the Brewers pretty much all but have the Central locked up. They're 8 games up there. So do you think anybody can catch the Brewers there?
It'll have to take the Cardinals will have to sweep them. I mean, they'll have to lose to a lot of people here soon. They would have to basically fall apart because that team is a team that relies heavily on their solid pitching. They've had it from both sides, from the starters to the bullpen guys. They've been solid, and they've done enough on offense to put themselves ahead and win. They're not really a spectacular team, but they they do all the right things basically. They're not super awesome in one category or the other, but I don't see it. I mean, the Cardinals are basically the only team that could do it. Maybe the Reds, they are higher in the division standings than the Cardinals, but I'm so suspect of them. I'm honestly shocked that they've made it this long with their team, and it's basically just because they hit a crap ton of homers. So the Brewers more than likely have this locked up. One thing in the NL that I'm interested in is what the Padres are doing, because like you said, they have the second wild card spot, but if they keep losing games, if they can't, lock it in here at the end of the year, somebody might be able to swoop in. That's very interesting to see them not be doing so great. And I know they've had some injuries. They definitely have some pitching issues. So it'll be very interesting to see if they kind of fall apart here at the end of the season, when they were just one of the hottest teams at the beginning of the season. Obviously, everyone's super stoked about Tatis. So hopefully they can kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I just saw that Clevenger is back for them, so that'll be a huge bump going forward. And as a Red Sox fan, I know all about a big bump whenever you get a good starting pitcher back, because Chris Sale is back, and that's huge for the Red Sox, who are currently going into today 3 games back from the Tampa Bay Rays, who are the first place team in the American League East. And the Yankees, who we all thought were going to be the juggernauts of the American League, are 5.5 games back in the AL East. They're clinging on to the second wild, or the Yankees are trying to get to the second wild card spot still. So if the season ended today, they would be out of the playoffs. Talked about them being mediocre in the open. They're not even a playoff team at the moment, but September is still just right around the corner, so they could get hot. They're only 2.5 games back from that second wild card spot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And speaking of pitchers that are back, Cardinals Jack Flaherty is back, and we love to see him back. He had a great first outing. I think he went 6 innings, 2 hits, didn't allow any runs, no walks. So amazing to have the ace back.
Yes.
I would love to see what would have happened with this season had he been healthy, had some other guys been healthy all year, because I think that's really where the issue started was the injuries, and then the starting pitchers having issues and injuries. But it is what it is. He's back, and it's always basically a dub whenever him and Waino are pitching. So at least you've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, that is a good feeling to have that guy back on the mound. I mentioned Chris Sale's back. He made his debut against the Orioles this past weekend. He only went out there for 5 innings. They're trying to ease him back into things, but he recorded 8 strikeouts. He gave up a pair of home runs, which happened to be back-to-back homers. It's okay. It's okay. He just wanted to get it out of his system. He kept on rolling. Our ace is back. It's time to party, time to celebrate. And speaking of the Orioles, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the Orioles and how they were sitting at 38 wins. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And you said, are they even going to crack 40? And I was like, yeah, they'll definitely crack 40. They'll luck up into a couple wins. Since that conversation, they have not won a single game. They have lost 11 games in a row. I jinxed them by saying that they would luck up and win a few games, but man alive, they got swept by the Red Sox. I mean, I'm happy for that at least, but they've got to win at least 2 games, or I'm going to feel terrible if they get shut out the rest of the season.
Oh, God. It's super unlikely. I mean, you've got to be able to squeeze 2 wins out of the rest.
You would think.
Yeah. But if there's any team out there that could screw that up, it's probably the Orioles. And I think the Diamondbacks are also still just god awful. It's crazy to see these teams just down in the dumps year after year after year. And for anyone out there who is a fan of those franchises, man, I don't even know. I hope you're a fan of a good team in some other sport, because that has to be just so rough.
So the Diamondbacks are now 38-81. So they've actually caught up to the Orioles in terms of winning, because I believe they were at 35 whenever we last spoke.
Right.
They've gone 4-6 in their last 10 games, whereas the Orioles, as I mentioned, have lost 11 in a row. Are we seeing like the epic race of our lifetime right now between the Orioles and the D-backs, the first to 40 wins?
Yeah, seriously. Can
I
they do it by September?
Can they do it? Yeah, by September. Will either of them even have another win added to their record by next week whenever we come live on the next podcast?
Very
We'll
rough.
see. We'll keep tabs on them for our listeners because
Absolutely.
that's definitely something interesting. The White Sox have the AL Central all but wrapped up. They're 10 games up over the Indians/Guardians, whatever you're calling them now. And the Astros have a 2.5 game lead over the A's in the AL West. The Red Sox and the A's would be the two wild card teams if this season ended right now.
Interesting. That was the AL West was another of those divisions that has kind of changed from what our initial thoughts were. We kind of thought that the A's were going to win that division, but the Astros have been really good this year. And not many people are talking about it, probably because people kind of still hate the Astros.
People don't want to admit it. Yeah.
Right. 100%. But they're doing well. I haven't seen many of their games. I don't really know why they're doing so well, but I mean, they still have a decent squad for sure. So it'll be very interesting to see if two teams out of the AL West make the playoffs.
And that does happen quite a bit with the AL West because the A's are notorious for getting to the wild card game. Most of the time they end up losing in the wild card game, but they make it every year, it seems like. So who knows? We'll see what happens. But you can pretty much count out teams like the Rangers, the Angels, the Mariners. They could make a run at things if they get super hot and have some lucky breaks go their way. But I think pretty much it's a two-team chase right there. Like I said, the A's are only 2.5 games back of the Astros, so they could definitely make a run at the division crown still.
How crazy is it to think that 4 Californian baseball teams could potentially be in the playoffs?
Yeah, with the A's, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. Yeah,
crazy. I mean,
if baseball coast right now.
Yeah, if the Angels could get their shit together, they might be in that mix too. But that's not happening this year.
No, and it's weird to think because they have 2 of the best players on planet Earth on their squad, but they can't get the rest of the team together to do anything. Of course, injury has plagued that team year in and year out.
Yeah.
Mike Trout's been out. Anthony Rendon's been out. So you can't really win a lot of games if your stars are not playing.
Yeah. And I haven't heard much out of Anthony Rendon this year. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, he wasn't as good as expected, I guess, but the injury probably also slowed him down significantly.
Sure.
Now, the only other thing that I have left is Champ to Champ episode 3 is now available on all of our podcast feeds and on YouTube. Last Saturday night, Zach and I had a really good conversation about running backs, specifically the running backs that you didn't know you needed for your fantasy draft and for your fantasy rosters. And I thought it was a great conversation, Zach. I know I had a lot of fun. I've gotten some feedback from some of our listeners about that, saying like, hey, that episode truly was added value to what I needed going into my draft. You guys were able to give me some answers to questions that I had about players, how you wanted to rate them. In some cases, we added, I guess, that voice of reason to them to draft the guy that they were going towards, or in some cases, we maybe talked them off of the ledge from taking the plunge. So I think we did our listeners a service by doing it that way. And I'm excited for this week on Champ to Champ to be able to talk about wide receivers and hopefully give some added value to that position as well.
Yeah. And I definitely think that's a smart way of going about a kind of show like that, because listing off the best guys is really redundant. So
look, our listeners are intelligent. They're not coming to us to hear what they already know. That we're not that entertaining. They're coming to us to hear our thoughts on guys that are on the fringe. They want to know if Damien Harris is going to have a solid year for the New England Patriots, which he is. And they don't want to know, like, okay, you guys think that Christian McCaffrey is one of the top 2 running backs in the league. So does everybody else on the planet.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yep.
They don't care about that. Our listeners are intelligent. They want detailed. And I love that we get so many comments during those live streams from people asking us, like, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? What do you think of this defense? And it's great. I hope that they continue to just follow us all season long, because it's going to be fun. We're going to be giving the weekly tips and advice, waiver wire picks, help people set their rosters. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, 100%. If you have any questions for us, you can obviously hit us up during the show in the comments. If you can't make the live show, you can leave them on any sort of social media. You can hit us up on the messenger on Facebook. If you've got like a draft that you want us to grade, like a mock draft you did, or your actual draft, we can definitely do that. You can ask us specific questions about specific players. We did that last week, and that's always really fun. We've got a little cheat sheet stat that we kind of check out, see what the numbers are, and then kind of give our thoughts on the player. And I've been really enjoying it. I hope people are enjoying it as well. I hope it's educational. And I think the way that we're going to do that, like you were talking about, is a lot more meaningful than just saying that DeAndre Hopkins is a really good wide receiver, because everybody knows that.
Oh, he is? Oh, let me make that note.
I hear he can catch the football with his hands, and he does it a lot. So
I would be more impressed if he was catching the football with his feet, but you know what? I'll go with hands for a wide receiver.
It is called football and not handball, so that would make sense.
Do you know why it's called football?
I can't wait for you to tell me.
Because the length of the ball is, guess what? A foot long.
That's hilarious.
That is why it's called football.
That is so American, because like we're one of the only countries that uses that system of measurement.
Very true.
And then we go ahead and take a sport that already has the name football and say, nah, we're not doing that. This is ours, and it's football.
The game that the world calls football, that you primarily play with your feet.
Yeah.
Nah.
Classic.
Not for us. Not my football.
No, we're going to make this out of pigskin, and we're going to get obliterated when we watch the game, and it's going to just be Americanized. And they did it, and it's great.
That's great. Yep, we love it. We're here for it every week. And with that, that's all I've got for you guys tonight. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. To all the live viewers out there, we appreciate all you. And we will be back here this time next week. We'll see you then. Peace.